Now
Welcome again.
now you can hear from me. Yes, thank you.
Yes, it's been a while though, Mr. Salah.
A long time.
Definitely,
Yes,
Mr. Salah.
sometimes it is necessary.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's
I,
good to be a listener.
it's good to miss a little bit. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm kind of nurturing sovereign citizens. And I'm sure most of our viewers that are out there, they should grab a copy of this book. There's a
Mm,
lot in it,
mm,
and I'm
mm,
sure we're gonna talk a little bit about it tonight, and
mm.
we're gonna also talk about the Constitution, Mr. Salah.
Okay,
But as always, on this platform, we always like to ask complex questions and
very good.
expect someone to give us a very summarized, short answers. And sometimes that's not really fair. And
Mm,
we live in a world of TikTok. Most of
mm,
our viewers,
mm.
all they want to do is see something for 30 seconds. You go
Exactly.
more than that.
Exactly. That's okay. It's okay.
So,
It's okay.
I'm here with my co-panelist,
Mm.
Sariang. I'm gonna let you this great Mr. Salah.
Yes. Mr. Salah, thank you very much for coming on the show. And we really appreciate you coming in here and share some of your perspectives in
Mm.
different issues regarding Gambia. And we're really, really excited to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be around. Thank you.
Mr. Salah, I'm gonna
Mm,
start with the very your book. You talk about nurturing sovereign citizens.
mm.
How does our current political climate or our current Gambia, where we are, the state of affairs? I think there is an echo. How how does the current political climate help with this whole idea of nurturing sovereign citizens?
Well, the book was written precisely because of the absence of that. We grew up not knowing who we are. Who taught us what it meant to be a citizen? And how many people can claim that up to university level that they did understand what it meant to be a citizen of a country? So we grew up at a time when we did not even know how we became the country we became. And it is absolutely essential for people to understand many developments that are mentioned in the book. Precisely when we look at the 1965 referendum, our elders did go to vote more on partisan basis and personality politics rather than the substance of nationhood. That is what was to be decided at that time. Whether we will continue to be under the 1965 constitution was the executive or to become a republic. If such a fundamental question was not properly put to a point that the referendum failed, then of course we did not have sovereign citizens who were properly nurtured. We did become a republic, supposedly also with a sovereign people, but how many of us knew what was in the 1970 constitution? How many of us, even those who were seen to be the political leaders, how many of them did interrogate the very constitution that should determine how they were to govern a country? So, in short, the absence of that is precisely why the book is written for us to see that as owners of the Gambia and owners of power, it was essential to know where our power starts and where it ends, and where those who govern get their powers and how they should utilize those powers and where those powers start and where they end. So in a sovereign republic, we must talk about powers because sovereignty is about power. And when it says that the Gambia is a sovereign republic, it means that the Gambia is independent from all other countries and no authority should exercise sovereignty over the country. And in that regard, we should not owe any obedience, adherence, or any form of subjugation to another power. So that is the essence. And as sovereign citizens, also the power of the republic resides in us. So it's as simple as that, that because it resides in us, no authority should exist without us, and no authority should be exercised without promoting our liberty and prosperity. That was missing, that is still missing. So we need to nurture it, meaning we need to conduct more education, citizenship education, to enable the people in our school system, in our vocational institutions, in our community organizations. We everywhere we need to take part in building that citizenry. And by doing so, then we eradicate the basis for division on the basis of ethno-linguistic groups, on the basis of caste, on the basis of religious differences, on regional basis. So essentially, we create the complete citizen who signs that contract with nation and people. And you can say Gambian people, and you should have that law for your people and law for country. That is the essence of the book.
So, Mr. Sallah, in 2016, one would say that we exercise as citizens that sovereignty. That is why we were able. Yeah, there's an echo. I don't know who's helping you with the. There is definitely an echo. That we were. Yeah, the connection is not. It's not very good. We're not very good listening. The same. Yeah. So what?
Is it okay now?
So I was. Okay.
If you need, there's no other audio device in here. So I don't know whether.
Marian, is it me or are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing.
The same echo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll just go with it. So, Mr. Sallah,
is it okay now?
Yes, it's good now.
Yeah, it's good now. In 2016, we came together as Gambians and exercised the very sovereignty that you're talking about, and we were able to send a dictator packing after 20 years. I mean, that says a lot about us citizens. How do you explain that in terms of this us still having problems by exercising our sovereignty?
Well, because each individual is an embodiment of that sovereignty, and we are different in mindset. In some instances, we can come together. In some instances, we really become divided. And I believe 2016 was an opportune moment. The country was heading towards real chaos. If people can reflect back, one could see that around September, October, the situation was very tense. You would remember that Honorable Dabo was incarcerated, and you can remember the words on TV, radio. ethno-linguistic diatribes were all over the air. And you could see a sense of dejection, a sense of desperation in people. And quite a number of people felt that really Gambia was going the way of confrontation and bloodshed. So looking at that situation, one would say that something needed to be done that will give people hope. We rely on facts as evidence to be able to determine whether what was done did address the demands and urgencies of the situation. With a situation like that, with us, in fact, refusing to monitor the presidential election by virtue of the fact that they felt it was a done deal, that there was not going to be any free and fair election. So it was not worth for ECOWAS to monitor it. The international community in general had given up. They felt that the elections were a foregone conclusion. So essentially, the whole mindset of people did not lean towards any form of change. One would say that to address that desperation is what led to at least an attempt to bring people together for that change. Now, to bring people together is not easy. What was done was to employ tactics that appeared to be the reasonable thing to do at the moment. And that was to invite the presidential candidates who are already campaigning to come to a forum for discussion and dialogue to see whether it is possible to select one among the numbers to be a flag bearer. That is how the process emerged. And of course, we know the conclusion. So essentially, it was a project that no one could oppose. Otherwise, one would be marginalized. And sometimes situations do create such opportune moments where if the right thing is done at the right time, you strike the right chord and people rise up together to the occasion to effect the change that actually happened in 2016. But because you had people with different mindsets, different objectives, being bound by the demands of the situation, then when they accomplish their goal, of course, they recede to their former selves and continue their former projects. So that is essentially what had happened. And my thinking would not be the thinking of many others. So, and talk about rights and wrongs in a situation where we are all sovereign and everybody is entitled to an opinion and thinking. So what we can say as a people is that we achieved one fundamental goal. That is to convince all that power indeed does emanate from the people, because we were able to remove the person who held power with tremendous might, tremendous authority, and replace him with another who was elected by us. So that particular development, which has never happened in Gambian history until then, could be said to have been the achievement we had.
Okay.
The rest is history.
Okay. Thank you, cameraman, for adjusting the camera. I think, yeah. Brother Sayan.
Thank you, Honorable Sallah, for coming up on the show. We really appreciate you. My first question to you is, how do you see a government, and more importantly, a president? Why do we elect a president for our republic every 5 years? And what is his roles and responsibilities?
That is precisely the citizenship education that should have been offered to all of us. Then maybe we'll be more determined to really direct and control our own might as sovereign citizens, because the powerhouse is in us and we should exercise direction and control over it. Republics are established to render services to the people. And that is why Section 26 of the Constitution says that everybody has the right to elect and be elected, but also a right to public services. Because the Republic is a community of sovereign citizens. There must be education, there must be health, there must be agriculture. All aspects of life must be covered. The Republic must ensure that we eat, we drink, we also live in houses and enjoy social life as a whole. That is our theater. And the president of a republic is considered the executive in our constitution. Of course, in more refined constitutions, one will move to the cabinet, because the president, yes, is elected by people as a whole, but ultimately, a president cannot govern alone. So it's the cabinet that actually governs on the principle of collective responsibility. That cabinet should be properly constituted. That is why, if you look at the Constitution, it's saying people who have experience and who have the qualification to carry out responsibilities should be entrusted with those responsibilities, to exercise direction and control over ministries, and under them you'll have the permanent secretaries technically prepared to be able to assist them to be able to exercise their work. The president then becomes the custodian of the policies of a nation, and also the person who executes the mandate to provide the services that we need, and work with a team competent enough to deliver the services the nation needs. Because they handle such an immense responsibility of controlling, managing resources, and implementing projects and proposals, and going to the level of not only the nation, but internationally, they engage in a relation between other countries, then something else is needed so that their powers will not be absolute. And that is why the cabinet as a whole are subject to oversight by another body, and that is the National Assembly. We see then the relation, that there must be a relation between a president who executes and a National Assembly that serves as oversight. Not only that, all of them must be bound by something, and that something must be the law. Therefore, you must have a constitution and you must have a law that governs how they administer the state. And then the principle of the rule of law comes, that when they administer the state, they must do so on the basis of law. For example, it is emphasized that the president under Section 78 of the Constitution cannot conclude international agreements, but can enter into international agreements, meaning the president can go and sign an international agreement, but must bring that international agreement to the National Assembly for ratification before it becomes actionable under our Constitution. So you can see then the separation of powers being given. Not only that, the Constitution says that all taxes must be based on the law. And once money is paid, it must be put in the sovereign, in the consolidated fund of the country at the central bank. This consolidated fund cannot be touched until another law says, well, take this money and put it in this place or that place. So here then, the executive has limited powers. It cannot force people to pay taxes that are not provided by law. It cannot also use that money unless authorized by law. Then it gives the Auditor General separate powers under Section 160 of the Constitution, that this Auditor General can audit all the accounts. And in fact, given further powers that wherever the Auditor General audits and discovers that anything is missing that is fraudulent, immediately that Auditor General can act directly by reaching out to the Inspector General of Police for investigation. So the state is organized in such a way that if the balances and checks work as they should, then it means you will have a very accountable and transparent administration that serves the interests of the people. So essentially then, the president of a republic is paid, taken care of, to act according to the dictates of the Constitution in order to be able to provide the services that the people need. That is the role of a president.
Thank you, Mr. Sallah. So with all that in mind, obviously, since we attained independence, before you came on the program, we were discussing, we faced the same issues. We had a change of government, but most of the basic amenities for our citizens are unattainable. They are rich, and we have same issues. And when I reflect on that, leadership becomes an essential issue, and it's the main ingredient of who we are and how we want to transform our country. What do you think that for 59 years we still face the same issues, even though you've laid out the responsibilities ingrained in the Constitution, the separation of powers, but we are still not be able to strike that balance? What is the issue?
Yes, it appears that the people who matter have not been given the education necessary to lead. It is really the people who should lead, meaning that it is the people who vote to put leaders in office. So those people must be conscious of what they are doing. Our problem, not only in the Gambia, generally in Africa, is that we became independent, but we really did not build countries owned by the people. We really did not build republics. And we are still vegetating. You can see the coup d'etat still taking place, and some people will even clap that the coup d'etat is taking place somewhere. So this is where we are. And we need a transition. Just as we were calling for a transition in 2016, we need a transition in mindset, and a determined one, where you, me, and all of us must begin that conversation, where, irrespective of party affiliation, we have a country that must have a state, that must have a government. and that has a people. And we must make that to be real for us to know that this is our country. Here, even our national borders are not yet fully defined. All these years for Senegal and Gambia to sit, go back to 10 August 1889 and say, well, this is how the British and the French met and demarcated. Whatever they have not demarcated, at least to agree on something permanent and say this constitute our borders. That has not been done. So when you talk about territorial integrity, how do you determine it? How do you define it? So those basic elements should have happened where we know that this is our country, our territorial waters constitute this. This is what should be done there. This is how it should be protected. Imagine the number of vessels who just come and ply our waters and disappear. Who is really safeguarding the territories? So in short, we are yet to take full ownership of the country that we should own. So I agree with you that we have not been able to build the type of governance environment that is necessary since we say we became independent. What is the problem? The problem is that we can move just up to a given level. And that level is to ensure that governments come to power through elections and that political parties are free to be formed to seek the mandate of the people. That is what is seen to be democracy. But I believe the next level of citizenship education at the early childhood level, all the way to the universities and other domains of society, our communities, for us to be well educated to know our power as citizens. And I believe once we know it, then we'll exercise those powers, we'll enforce those powers more responsibly, and therefore we'll attain the development that we seek. That is really the challenge.
Thank you. Musa, go ahead.
Mr. Sallah, back in 2016, there was a lot of expectations when the parties came together and change happened. There was a change of government. But something else did happen. There was a betrayal. We were all there. This is not ancient history. And the betrayal was clear. We had an agreement and there was a memorandum of understanding. Everything was stipulated to the key. The guardrails, how the candidate would run under an independent ticket, everything was signed. With the help of God, Jammeh was sent packing. Some of your supporters, Mr. Sallah, they said this was an opportune moment for DOI and what DOI stood for. In 2021, you run as a presidential candidate. You were well aware of this betrayal. But people said that DOI and Mr. Sallah did not exploit, not necessarily exploit, but go to the Gambian people and said, this is what we agreed upon. And this is what the betrayal was. And the people that betrayed cannot be trusted. Instead, DOI and Mr. Sallah decided that they are just going to focus on their programs in a country where people are immersed in poverty, in a country where people are ethnic sensitivities, in a country where people are low-income voters. People are saying Mr. Sallah did not employ the strategy that would have made it competitive. Instead, Mr. Sallah just focused on their programs, and that did not work. Looking back, do you think that's a fundamental mistake, Mr. Sallah, that you failed, I mean, respectfully, to say that these people betrayed what we agreed upon? Or are we missing something, Mr. Sallah?
Well, it's an opinion which we need to interrogate. You see, people should go back to September, October, and then address the issue. Should what happened to have been left like that not to happen? Or were we right to bring people together to effect the change? That is really the fundamental question. You see, change must have strategic objectives and must have tactics. The situation that existed would have led to more suffering, more frustration, and even violence of some sort if the change did not occur at the right time. So the change was a remedy to conflict. And for that purpose, we've achieved our aim. But the aim was more than just to remedy a conflict. The aim was to give Gambia a new start.
Mm-hmm.
But to give Gambia a new start required that you control power. What we had was a gentle person's agreement, relying on all of us remaining loyal to our common aspirations. Then we would have delivered. But if we have common aspirations and then attain power, and others feel that they would not go on with those aspirations, all it reveals is that we were different from the very beginning, and coming together did not unite us. It only enabled us to cross the bridge and ensure that we achieve at least immediate aim of changing a government. The next task was how to manage that change so that it will have the effect of building a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, clearly, we must understand the state and how it works. That even though you may agree to put somebody in office, once the person is in office, the person governs according to the Constitution. What was before the person who was elected was to choose to implement the coalition mandate, meaning then that he would have accepted the 3-year term,
Mm-hmm.
would resign under Section 65 of the Constitution, to allow room for an election to take place, carry out constitutional reform
Mm-hmm.
as quickly as possible. And part of the constitutional reform was to include in Section 65 of the Constitution that where the office of president becomes vacant, within 90 days, there'll be election to the office of president. So all the things could have been put in constitutions and laws to be able to implement what we agreed upon. But we did not reach that far because the person who actually became president had interest in serving as an executive president under the mandate given by the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, what do you do next? That is the fundamental question. So what we did was to inform the people that what you have is a regime change and that we have not succeeded in changing a system. And that's the reality. Since it is the people who decide, well, it was left to the people to know that every 5 years we'll have an election. And when we have the election, what do you do again? To make your campaign to show that is the betrayal by these people? Well, I'm not sure whether that, I remember going to train some women before the local government elections, the regional council elections. And then one of the trainers came to me and really seemed to be very apologetic and said, really, you're in my heart, but I didn't vote for you in the presidential election because I did not want this other group of people to win. People said it openly. So, and how many thousands of people decided to go and vote based on how they saw the priorities of politics. So in that instance, I don't see what anybody could have done by carrying out a campaign, which ultimately will result in the same decisions being made, and only is the subject matter of the campaign that will be different. I honestly believe I would have failed terribly if I took that angle of campaign, because it's like you are a loser. They have betrayed you, so you are angry.
I really wanna push back. I really wanna push back on that. I really do want
to. Allow me. I'm saying the campaign of telling people that they have not got the change they wanted, that the change they should pursue is this type of change, is the beginning of another era, because a coalition period had gone. That is, now we were dealing with post-coalition. So what should be the post-coalition agenda is what was being laid in 2020. And I must say why that is successful, because after everything, it is the same people who come back and say, wow, really what you were telling us, we are seeing with our very eyes. Really. So I believe politics is not just simply trying to look at the negative side of things, but is also looking at the positive side of things. I really don't feel betrayed. For me, I feel that we have achieved what no political party had ever achieved, and it is the Gambian people who must stop mystifying the results of elections, because the reality is no single political party has ever changed the Gambia through the ballot box. Even though they talk about big political parties, but no single opposition party had ever done that. But we brought about a coalition and effect that change. So therefore, that is a lesson to the Gambian people that yes, they are capable of effecting change. Now, for me, the question is, what type of change? And that is what we must interrogate. What type of change do we want? And how can we bring it? So the situation that is brought after 2021 is not an act of feeling betrayed, but rather differentiation between the different political forces in the country, enabling the people to be able to rethink politics. And I believe that now we have an opportunity to rethink politics.
So I really want to come back to this. I really want to push back a little bit. And when I said betrayed, what they betrayed was the aspiration of the people, because this was a collective effort. And everybody understood that we have different political parties and different directions. We are coming together to bring about change. And there were ways that we were supposed to do it. So all I'm saying is, looking back, because you played a huge role, nobody doubts that. We all witnessed the impasse. When Halifa speaks, people listen. There was absolutely no doubt about that, with authority and credibility. Now we are looking at 2021 elections. Clearly, Mr. Sallah, there was a betrayal of not you personally, but betrayal of the process itself. And I am saying, and some of your supporters are saying, you did not put a lot of effort on telling people that, look, this is what we agreed upon. And the frustrating thing was, let's say, for instance, even the NPP was saying that, for instance, well, I mean, Doi and Halifa Sallah, these are nice people. I mean, just basically to reinforce, don't vote for the other guy, at least vote for us. Halifa is nice, but you guys can vote for us, because if we vote for Halifa, Halifa would lose. I mean, these people were playing politics to win. And I'm just saying, looking back, most people think the strategy that you employ did not work.
Whose strategy worked?
I'm sorry?
I say, whose strategy worked?
The Barrow strategy worked. The NPP strategy worked.
Well, that's
because
what
ultimately,
and every Gambian was here when we educated people that we had a 3-year term program. All Gambians knew that. And those same Gambians are the one who will come and vote for Barrow in 2021. So if you believe that those people were so unintelligent that they did not vote their own volition, then you'll be making a sad mistake. In fact, you will be helping the ruling party at this moment. Because what is important is to understand the level of the Gambian people and the political landscape at that time. All these people who voted based on their own volition. And nobody should really give an excuse for them. Otherwise, they will begin to continue to fool themselves. We must hold them accountable for the actions. You know, we must hold leaders accountable, but we must also hold people accountable. The people must be accountable for the actions that they take. And if we want the Gambian people to become enlightened, we should stop giving excuses for them. We should frankly tell them, you chose this way, and that is the consequence of your action. That is the long and short of it. We must see development to be a process. 2016 was a process, completed in 2021. But that completion was still vague in the minds of many people. They were still looking at personalities. They were still looking at elections to be very superficial. But it is now that the Gambian people are beginning to realize that elections are not ordinary matters. Elections are life and death issues. And now is the time that we should really help the Gambian people to understand the road to their economic emancipation. How do you get rid of their poverty? That becomes a fundamental question. How can we enlarge liberty? That is now a fundamental question. So what is important is to draw the lessons now, and we are drawing the lessons. This is the time to draw the lessons. And I am fully confident that the lessons are very positive, because even in the heart, you see, you've mentioned something where Barrow people say, nice, you know, for Doi, that has always been its politics. You know, everybody from PPP all the way, I remember Sam Sar telling me, the late our colleague, you know, who was, okay.
Dr. Ture?
No, late, it's a late colleague in UDP. Yes, he was with Hassan Musa Kamara. So Femi Peters meeting Sam and telling him, we are just from Jawara, him and Hassan Musa at that time. I said, we are just from Jawara. And what Jawara told us is that, I hate to narrate this now because the man is no longer alive. But he told Sam, what Jawara told us is that you people, you are not like Doi. You do not do your homework. At least Doi wasn't say all these things. Well, this is Jawara saying this to GPP, the leader. So we have not been people who are seen, you know, just to be saying things for its sake, for their sake. I believe that people have always seen us as people of substance, regardless of party affiliation, and therefore that integrity should be sustained. And the tactics that you've mentioned worked because that was the situation. That is where the minds of the people were, and that's how they voted.
Yeah, Sarian.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Sallah. I wanted to follow up on the 3-year agreement, and the president wanting to rule as an executive, which is 5 years. And there's a lot of conversations around this, who betrays who, and looking at the different dynamics, and again, zooming into the law. When those 3-year draft was done, I know it was a gentleman agreement, but was there any thinking, and realistically, coming out of that dictatorship and how the security apparatus was and the security challenges and everything, was it feasible, say, if the president resigned within 3 years, for Gambians to mobilize registration, ensuring there is fair and integrity in our election process, to have a new election? Was that realistic in your view, and what are some of the plans to implement those?
Well, just imagine that we started the coalition on the 30th of October is when we met to select the flag bearer. 30th October. For 2nd December, how many months? 1 month, 2 days, and we changed the country. So if we can do that, and we selected somebody who was a caretaker, is a flag bearer. So we combine our collective strength to put the person in office and say, be there so that we can build a new foundation for the Gambia, a level ground for multi-party contest. That was the plan, a realistic plan. Within 3 years, even within a year, we could have reformed the constitution, reformed the institutions, conduct general civic education and citizenship education. Yes, we could. In fact, for me, when I stood, I offered 2 years. I contested. I didn't select Barrow. I contested. But because of not wanting to be seen to be power hungry, which one would have been by saying, well, election, this, and you've heard all the coalition, what they said about that election, you could have easily dismissed it. And of course, we would have had the same person presiding over the affairs of the country. But essentially, what was being done was to effect a change that will give Gambia a new start. That was the vision. That was my vision anyway. I don't know about the rest. Is to give Gambia a new start. And it was realistic to implement that. Why wouldn't it be realistic? At that time, if you gave me 2 years, I will implement it. And I can say it now because, it does not matter anymore. So in that reality, one must dwell on everything, every element was looked at. Not only that, we had prepared a draft memorandum, which would have shown that coalition governance environment leading to the change that we were talking about. But all of that was scrapped. Why? Because it was not only one person who wanted to be an executive president, but there were many forces that strengthened that person to hold on to that view. So if everybody had the same view, and it is only that single person who had the view of continuity, of course you can put pressure, and the person will know that I am created by this coalition, therefore I can go against that coalition. But I don't want to go into that. What is obvious to everybody, I don't know why we are debating on it. We know exactly what happened. Those are matters that are not necessary to dwell on. People took their own decisions, for their own reasons. And that's exactly what happened. The coalition disappeared as soon as that president saw that he was an executive president who should serve not only even 5 years, but as many years as the people will give him. So that is the reality that we must confront. But what we did was very realistic, and if we had carried it, Gambia would have been the darling of the world. Gambia would have been an example, because at that material time of the change, the whole world was inspired because they knew the force we removed. That's why anytime people are talking about Senegal, this happened, it's like, what happened in Senegal? You know, these people were removed from prison. They went and participated in election and won. In our situation, people were kept in prison who were leaders of political parties, major political parties, kept there in prison. We won an election. The person refused to go. We made sure that the person went in peace. And those people who were in prison removed, not by him, but by us. So what example can people learn from Senegal? Whatever they have done there, we have done much more on a more difficult circumstances, more dangerous circumstances.
Correct.
We kept the country together. ECOWAS was there with its weapons, ready to come in. We managed them. Not everybody in ECOWAS agreed with that. Some wanted to come in in another manner. So we were controlling two forces. Control Jammeh, control forces in ECOWAS who wanted to come in a different way. So the situation was fully managed. So in that sense, really, Gambia was a lesson for the world, because what happened here rarely happened anywhere else.
Thank you, Honorable Sallah. Honorable Sallah, you know, I know you said we should not dwell on the past, but
no, we can.
My belief is, you know, we had a lot of challenges, and we, of course, had some pitfalls. And out of those challenges and pitfalls, I think we need to draw lessons learned and apply that in the future. And I think that is very, very critical. You talk about, you know, civil education, but what we've seen time over time, despite we had these basic amenities that are lacking, you know, basic electricity, you know, having a decent healthcare structure, we lack that still. But even though everyone knew that, because when they go to those hospitals, they don't get the care they need. But we continue to vote the other way. And I think it's incumbent to draw lessons and say, what are some of the things that we could do differently? And what are some of the things that we could learn in terms of I like the way you put out how the president's supposed to be elected, but we're not doing that. And some of those things, I think it's reflective of on the type of leadership and different political parties and dynamics. Now, how do we, from your vantage point or lessons drawn, how do you see a way path forward in terms of civil engagement, talking about issues rather than personalities, to ensure that we have a population that is engaged and aware and knew that the power lies in their hands, not the elected officials?
As I have rightly said, we should not live in the past, but I'm not saying that we should not learn from the past. And you are clearly right by drawing that parallel, that we must learn from the past to be able to build the future. But let me be very clear. If you listen to President Barrow, especially in China, he's saying that the role of the government is simply to create a space, but it is the private sector that will actually build Gambia. You look at foreign direct investment in the Gambia 2023, the minister is saying it's about $37 million. But the remittances is over $737 million. So the remittances in a year compared to 37 million of foreign direct investment, where is the private sector investing? What are we doing with those remittances that are coming into the country? Where is it going in the productive base? If we were going to banking system now, you will discover that annually, like last year, the exchange, foreign exchange, the currency sales is 1.1 billion. For the sales, 1 billion. 1.1 billion for the buying, 1 billion for the sales. So you can see that about almost 2.1 billion is being exchanged. And we are talking about dollars. We are not talking about dollars. Dollars is being exchanged in foreign currency in our banking system. Where is that money going? So a country will need resources to be built. And that is why you have to have policy initiative, which should be our discussion now. What policies do we need? You talk about the health sector there. You look at Global Fund, $17 million for malaria. And on, $23 million for HIV. So you find out all these contributions. And you must look at our health system. How do you organize it? So what we really need is to sit down and interrogate, what do we need to develop our country? We have put a framework. Fundamentally, even the way we conduct our budgetary system will never lead to the development of our country. I repeatedly tell people, come to my home and get out of my home and you see what is in the street there. Hundreds of women, if not thousands. No market, that's where they are selling. 4 o'clock in the morning, that's where they come to assemble. Some even come all the way from Sanja with their tomatoes. From Budfu, from everywhere, from the combos. So essentially, what that is a microcosm of the failure of what is happening in terms of economics. Failure of the councils and failure of central government. None of them is actually performing. Why? Because they don't know how to run those institutions. We have said from the very beginning, we cannot take the colonial direction of managing a country because they created urban-rural dichotomy and therefore create the basis for urban-rural drift and eventually country to diaspora drift, because we are not building the productive base. You will go to Agric and talk to the minister. Today, they will tell you, they will agree that there is over 550,000 hectares of land available for cultivation. But if you ask them, how much are we contributing in terms of cultivating in terms of rice, when we are almost 300,000 demand? How much are we? 47,000 tons. During Jammeh's time, 57,000 tons. You know, when we have the land, you go to Nari, they will tell you, yes, a particular hectare can produce 5 tons. How many hectares do you need? 60,000, and then you produce 300,000. So what is the problem? Why, since Jawara's time, we are unable to do that? Why are we unable to feed ourselves? You can see the cooperative, what happened with the Macaulay Commission during the First Republic. With almost, I think, 40-something butus was left in their accounts. You come Second Republic, yes, food self-sufficiency in before 2016. How did it happen? 57,000 tons. So essentially, there is something fundamentally wrong with the system. And this is what intellectuals must begin to interrogate and agree upon. If we agree on developmental principles, and I'll come back to the budgeting, you see, what we need is applying the law of balance and proportionate development of society. No society can develop without applying that. That in budgeting, we need to consider from the village development committee, what are their priorities all the way to the ward, all the way to the region, the municipalities, and that should be taken on board. And coming to the central government, you know exactly what the needs of the villages are. And therefore, in the allocation of resources that belong to all of us, it goes in that direction. That is how you eradicate that rural-urban drift and create a basis for both rural and urban development. These are requirements. They are scientific requirements of how you build a society. They have never been applied. You look at the central bank at this moment, we are in the hands of the IMF. Why? Because of balance of payment deficits. You are exporting less than you are importing in terms of value. And that's a continuous basis. So how will you have the foreign exchange? How do you have your reserves outside to be able to facilitate the importation of goods? So you will not have it. Always in deficit. So therefore, you have to rely on the IMF for balance of payment support. But today, if you are exporting more than you are importing, of course, we will no longer be in the hands of the IMF for conditionality, because we will have enough foreign reserve to be able to handle our own affairs. So in short, we need to sit down and talk about developmental issues, because we have the resources. Just look at Batokunku Sanyang Kato. How many years they were mining and it was disappearing, and nobody during the past regime. Now, what is coming out of there? How is it benefiting the Gambia? Nil. You will not see much. So essentially, this is what we are saying. Since Gambia came into being, no prospecting has been effectively done to know exactly what we have. They will tell you, go to Tumana, they found diamond there, go to this. So all sorts of speculations. But no serious government has ever undertaken to know the type of minerals that we have in the Gambia. No serious government had ever undertaken food self-sufficiency issue. And how do you undertake it? Well, of course, the system must be different. The farmer wants to produce but does not have the farming implements, does not have the seed, does not have the fertilizer. So how do you make that available? This is the debate. If you make that available,
how do we make it available, Mr. Sallah? And we're just going to hold on to that question. We're going to explore, because come 2026, we will have an opportunity, because clearly the current system is not working. But we have some people that buy ads, and they're the ones that kept us going. So let's play the ads, Mr. Sallah. Drink a little bit of water. Again, thank you for being on this program.
Believe the hype, because it's that good. A true kitchen